I made a promise, and it's important in life to have integrity. Those who work with me and those who associate with me know me for that. The ability to keep your word and the ability to keep people's word. I think it's very critical. Normally I'm a very thorough person. First of all, let me thank Oyinkan very well for inviting me and for setting this up. I'm going to be sharing things with you that I wish people shared with me when I was the age of many of you. But I didn't have that privilege in life. And so I learned a lot of things the hard way. And I learned a lot of things by experience. I hope to share some life stories with you, some of my life stories with you, if time permits and if the occasion permits, because I think that is more useful to you. I really am incapable of capturing all the things that I'm supposed to share with you and all the things that I'm supposed to, elucidate upon. What that means, therefore, is that as I speak, there are inflections in my voice that you will clear, you will hear, and there are things that will minister to you, so to speak, to use a theological terminology. So I want to thank you all for inviting me to speak. I hope we will all be blessed. Please note that I've also come here to learn. You never finish learning in life, and Oyinkan is such a great person. I'm here under protest, by the way. Some people think they are practicing psychology, but it's emotional terrorism that they're practicing. So, she won't let me rest. I mean, she woke me up this morning. I just saw text and text and text. I've had voice calls and everything, and I'm saying, I just need to rest. I just finished another seminar, and I needed to take at least some food, before coming, to this. So congratulations, everybody. First of all, congratulations that you made it this far. It's been a very, very, very tough year. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how strong you are. This year has been the year. And if you can make it up to this point and make it to December, then you must have a special party. I mean, Oyinkan must organize a special Zoom party for everyone who made it. And I'm praying that everyone here will make it. Well, the subject I've been given is emotional intelligence. I don't want to talk too long. I'd rather take question and answer and share life experiences with you, because I've checked the age range of the people that are on this program. And I've checked the profile of the people that are on the program. Yes, you are businessmen, executives, entrepreneurs, and things like that. But what defines you? And when you come on this kind of program, what defines you actually is the fact that you are a high achieving or high impact executive. So I'm going to address you as a high impact executive or high achieving executive. Because you see, the mental profile of the high achieving executive is completely different from that of the ordinary person. The mental profile of the person who makes impact and makes a difference in society is completely different. The psychological profile is so different. And sometimes you are going to find that you yourself, you are going to struggle with yourself, and you are going to struggle with society, and society is going to struggle with you. But it's okay. The other protest I want to register is that this program was supposed to be taking place in a hotel as we're having dinner. The only reason I signed for this program was because of jollof rice. And now jollof rice is not and and I don't want virtual jollof rice. So if you notice, even though I'm well dressed and I'm wearing a very expensive jacket, and a very expensive shirt and a very, very expensive pocket square, I've in protest refused to wear a tie, because not having been served jollof rice, you don't deserve tie, Oyinkan. So that's the way. So unless I see my jollof rice. Okay, let's just hear, okay? Let's get some things off the table. Let's get things like definitions off the table. If you've ever read Alice in Wonderland, you'll have heard of Humpty Dumpty. When I was in nursery school, many years ago. We were taught about Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and Humpty Dumpty's head scattered, and all the king's men could not put together Humpty Dumpty again. Now, the main problem that Humpty Dumpty had was over the issue of definition. Humpty Dumpty said that a word means exactly what it means, what he thinks it is. And so he could give different meanings of words. He could call a bottle, actually he could call it a frame or a table or whatever. And of course, you know what the problem with that will be. What I want us to do is to agree on the definition of emotional intelligence. And it's very simple. I'm a very simple person, and I take a very simple approach to things. It's just the ability to recognize intelligence and the ability to adapt to intelligence around you, and ability to use those knowledge and those information, for your peace, for your progress, and to achieve great things. Later, you are going to find out that that emotional intelligence is not what you think it is. In fact, emotions is not what you think it is. For example, I'm sure sometimes you've wondered why you are so tired, and you've taken Lucozade and you've taken vitamins and all sorts of things, and you are still tired. It's not that you are physically tired, it's because you are emotionally tired. Those of you that have bad marriages, and I pray that there is nobody on this timeline that has any bad marriage. But if you have a bad marriage, where it assails you is not the physical as such, it is the emotions. When you see a man working overtime in the office, when everybody has closed, he's probably running away from home. And when you see a woman who is totally unhappy, what is happening is that her emotional intelligence is being assailed. And so for you as an entrepreneur, let's agree, or as executives, let's agree on the definition of this emotional intelligence. And what I've written here is that it is, I'm looking for it, the ability to recognize your emotions and those of others, discern different feelings, use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, and achieve one's goals. Let me read that again. The ability to recognize your emotions and those of others, discern different feelings, use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, and achieve one's goals. So why do you need emotional intelligence? It's very simple. I'll give you about 6 or 5 factors why you need emotional intelligence. The truth is that you can hardly succeed in business without emotional intelligence. You can't build a great team without emotional intelligence. If you want your team to cohere, there must be emotional intelligence, being able to recognize emotions in others, what they are going through, and being there for them as a boss. Sometimes people ask me, why is it that people work so long at all that consulting? And I always tell them that my secret of management is that I love the people that work with me. I genuinely love them. I care for them. I'm there for them. I'm constantly praying for them. If I sense that there's something wrong with them, I'm always there for them. I'm praying for them, watching out for them, and whatever I can do in my own little way, whether financial, whether material, whether going to visit, whether talking to the wives, whether playing with the children, all those kinds of things I will do, because those are dimensions of emotional intelligence. If you want to be a good boss and you don't want a high referral rate or a high attrition rate in your organization, you got to exercise emotional intelligence. The other reason why you need emotional intelligence is because you can't design a good product or service without emotional intelligence. You don't know how people feel. So when you design a product, you design it like an engineer. Say, I remember many years ago, I bought a Sony Ericsson phone. It was such a beautiful phone and everything, except that it was an engineer's phone. It was beautiful to look at. The functionalities were great. It's just that there was no intuitive interface. You could tell that whoever designed this phone, or the designers that designed this phone, had no interest of the consumer in mind. They were just doing their own thing. You can't design a good product without emotional intelligence. You got to know where the shoe pinches. You got to know how it feels. The more you can know, how those things feel, the better the product that you design. And that's one of the secrets of Apple. Steve Jobs was not a great guy in terms of being a nice guy and all that stuff. But they understood how people use these products intuitively, and it designed for that. So if you are struggling with your products as a corporation or as an entrepreneur, you may need to check whether you understand the feelings of the infirmities of the people that you are designing for. Number 3, I'm getting old, so sometimes I need to remove my glasses, just to look at things. Number 3, if you want to manage talent, you see, there are some professions that require talents. For example, in Alder Consulting, we have to have talents. I have technology talents, strategy talents, media talents, and things like that. And this can be very temperamental. They can be very churlish. They can be very insular. They can be totally into themselves and all those things. If you want to manage all that stuff, somebody has to be able to supply the emotional glue that holds the team together. Now, as a boss, if you lack all that capacity yourself, the team cannot be held together. So in order for you to manage talent, you need to have emotional intelligence. Number 4, if you want to have a good marriage, and I want to talk to the men in particular, men don't fully recognize that most of a woman's communication is nonverbal. I had we set up an old boy platform, an alumni platform from my school, and one of the executive members was having a problem with another lady on the platform, and he was complaining that he just wanted to resolve the issue with her, but that she insisted on going back from the very beginning and talking about all the issues and what caused what and everything. And I had to shout at him. I said, she's a woman. You see, for you as a man, what you are looking for is a logical resolution. For the woman, the process of ventilating those grievances, and that for her is a real deal. It's not so much the conclusion or whatever. She just wants to be able to say a piece of her mind, and give her own side of the equation. And sometimes men are very impatient with these kinds of things. And so high impact executives in particular struggle with marriage, especially young men that are inexperienced. And and if you continue to do that, the woman is going to accuse you of oppressing her, especially if you are older, or if you have more money, or you are more advanced, or your position is much higher than hers. Then you won't understand the language why she's saying that you're oppressing her. But the truth is, a woman interprets that as oppression. So you have to be careful. If you want to have a good marriage, you just have to have emotional intelligence. Now, of course, I cannot tell you how important marriage is. If you are successful in business and your home is not okay, man, you have just joined the Nigerian Labour Congress. You will suffer. Oh Lord, you will suffer. And take it from somebody who has been down that route. Like I said, I will share some personal experiences with you. Hopefully it will help you, and to help you avoid the mistakes that I made. They're not really mistakes. It's just that nobody taught me that this is the way life will be, or that this is the way life is, and all those things. Okay. Now, the other reason why you need emotional intelligence is to protect yourself from danger. You see, in all my seminars that I've attended, in all the business schools that I've been to, seminars and things like that, the corporations and everything, they taught me information gathering, networking, all those things that you need to do to succeed as an entrepreneur. The only thing that they did not teach me was one of the most important, and that is the ability to recognize envy. Now, let me repeat that. If you don't recognize envy, you are going to be so set up, and people can wait for you. Listen to how complex life can be. People can wait for you for 35 years to deal with you out of envy. And, when I went through some experiences in life, I called my son in England and I said, please, are there friends of yours that are envious of you? I said, if they exist, please take off now, run away from them, Because if you don't, if you expose yourself to them, if you are not emotionally intelligent enough to recognize hatred and envy, when the time comes, the punishment that you will undertake and that you go through, you will never believe that certain things exist in life. I mean, your theology will change. You will learn human nature. You will see that people that you thought were friends were just camouflaging. And these are realities of life, and I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you all the things that I've gone through and all the things, that you need to be mindful of, especially if you are between ages 35 and 47. That age range is so crucial in your life. It is at that age that you gain confidence, extreme confidence. It is at that age that you are achieving. Most likely at that age, you are buying a car for yourself, or you bought a car for yourself. You probably bought one landed property, or you are planning to emigrate, and or you are planning to get your visa or something. And getting a visa is not a problem for you because there are records of authenticity and records of integrity and all those things. It is at that age that you begin to get promotion and people begin to recognize you for your worth, and your voice is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, if you don't recognize envy at that age, you can be totally undone. Let me give you an example of why you have to be careful about envy. There are some things that are irrational. You see, evil is irrational. For example, somebody does evil to you and you begin to ask stupid questions like, why did he do that? That's a stupid question because you are dealing with evil. You are not dealing with goodness. It is with goodness that you can ask, why is this being done? Or why did this person do that? When it comes to evil, it's totally irrational. There's no linear logic. Everything is totally fractal. You can't understand why anybody would do evil because it is proceeding from emotions. And emotions are not rational. Emotions is an energy system. So there's something that is powering that thing. And what you call envy is actually the cousin of hatred. In fact, it is semi-hatred. It's on the way to graduation to hatred. It's like flu and coronavirus. And there's not much difference between the two. They look alike, and everything. Unless you are God, only you, God, can tell the difference between the two. It's the same thing, envy and hatred. Now, when you are dealing with irrational behavior, one of the greatest mistakes you can make is to try and rationalize irrational behavior. What you do when you are confronted with such a thing is to run and pray for God's deliverance, because evil has such potency. And why you need to guide your marriage, and I say this again because of the kind of people that I'm talking to and the caliber of people and the stage you are in life. The last person that you want to have a problem with in marriage is the person that you are married to. You don't want envy in your marriage. If you're a woman, don't marry a guy who can't handle your progress and your success. If you're a guy, don't marry a woman who is threatened or is insecure about the progress and the progressions in your life. You have to be careful because, see, oftentimes what happens is that it's not as if there are no warning signs. The warning signs are always there. Go and ask any divorcee. He or she will tell you that before the marriage, there was that one instance in which the relationship could have scattered, in which the person had the opportunity to walk out, but then you papered over it and you rationalized it, and then the trouble that you avoided at that point in time began to wait for you 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line. These days it's even shorter. Marriages break now 1 year, a few months after, and 2 years. I mean, I get a lot of mails in the year, during the year, and sometimes I'm shocked at the kind of mails that I'm getting. When we were young, and I'm not that old, that's right, what it seems like, but when we were young, you marry for 20 years before problems begin to surface. At least you do 10 years. These days, I'm seeing 1 year, 2 years, 6 months. I mean, I've received letters for 3 months, and it's all scattered. That's because they made the wrong choice, because they did not recognize certain things in the person that they are dating. they lack the emotional capacity to recognize what they were looking at. And sometimes, and women are very fond of this, because a woman tends to have missionary capacity in a marriage. She wants to change the man. She wants things to be better. She wants a beautiful home and all those things. Please recognize one thing. Whoever you are dating, that guy that you are looking at is the guy you are going to marry. Your name is not Jesus Christ. You cannot save the world. And if you try to show that your name is Jesus Christ, you will go to Golgotha. And when you have been nailed, you will recognize that your name is not Jesus Christ, because you won't rise on the third day. So recognize trouble when you see it. Don't say that because it's taking you some time, therefore anything that is available, just marry. All those things will pass away within a matter of months. Then the marriage begins. And you can't change somebody if you cannot accept the person for what the person is or who the person is. If you are married to a lazy person, or sorry, if you are dating a lazy person, know that you are going to marry a lazy person. It's just so simple. Don't paper over it. Don't rationalize it. If you rationalize bad behavior, you are going to pay a price for it. Okay? So within the age range of 37, sometimes 35, for some people it's about 32. If you're a high achiever, a very high achiever, 32 and 49, I want you to note that life is going to happen. And you have to be prepared for life happening. I was never prepared for it. You see, I was a very, very naive young man who believed that if I help as many people as I can, and if I don't trouble people and I don't do evil to people, therefore evil will not be done unto me. Oh Lord, that was one of the most fallacious philosophies in which I ever embraced. And I paid a terrible, 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 terrible price that took God to deliver me. I almost lost my life to it. There was a time I was in hospital. It was that bad, for about 3 months. And every day I had to ask God to renew my life, my life became like MTN subscription, so every day I'll wake up and buy 24 hours recharge card from God, just to live for another 24 hours. And this continued for 3 months. You don't need to make that kind of mistake. You don't need to, go through the kind of things that I went through. I went through all those things so that when we have seminar like this and I talk to you, you can be careful and know who to avoid and who not to avoid. If there's a guy that is already complaining about you, that girls like you more than they like him, or that is more handsome than you, or that the car that you rode in school or you are riding in school or something is better than his car, please run away from such people. Here's a mistake that we make. We think that when we achieve, that thing that we say to ourselves that we don't want people to say now that we have achieved, we no longer talk to our old friends. Now, let me give you a piece of wisdom. If somebody is not naturally in your present, please don't go and excavate the person from your past and bring them into your present. You are looking for trouble. If somebody is supposed to be in your present, the person will be in your present. Life is like a triangle. It segregates until it becomes narrow and it tapers towards up. The more the years go, the less people go to the top. At the top, the more people drop. Now, as you go, you are going to make new friends, new acquaintances, and all those things. Don't go and carry someone who has a grudge against you or who hates you. And you are trying to prove a point that you're a nice guy and that you don't forget your friends and all those things. All those things are theory. Because when those guys show you, you will never believe, I never believed that doing good could be so hard. I never believed that, you could be so nice to people and people could be so evil to you and so treacherous to you. Now, these are things that you need to learn at your age, and it will be unwise for you at this age not to recognize such emotions and such things. So that's the summary of why you need emotional intelligence. You need to be able to recognize danger so that when an evil eye is turned against you, you can at least recognize it. Now, how you handle it is up to you. And if someone good is turned towards you, you can at least recognize it and say, this is a friend of the company. This is my friend. This is somebody I can rely on. This is somebody whose word I can rely on. And then you won't put your trust in the wrong people. Okay? Um, Giving can be so hard. Let me give you a tale of giving and how you can be nice to people and people can hate you for being nice to them. Because remember what I said, envy is irrational. Many years ago, a lady approached me in church and said she needed money to set up, to buy, set up a shop. So I gave her quite a lot of money, paid for 2 years rent for the shop, quite a lot of money. And I gave her the money. I didn't hear anything from her. I mean, I was okay, and everything for the next few months. Then one day I get a call from this same lady, and she says to me that a nephew is in the hospital. And I said, what's wrong with him? He said, the nephew is actually on the operating table, a young boy, about 4 or 5 years old, and that the doctors have cut him open, and that the doctor that is in charge said that he's not going to proceed with the operation unless we deposit. This was like 25 years ago. We deposit about 50,000 naira into the doctor's bank account, and that he has said that he's not going to swap the baby. So, I mean, I thought that was gross, and that what a wicked doctor, and everything. So, but the life of somebody was at stake. So I rushed to my bank. I organized for 50,000 naira to be transferred to her, and only to learn later that it was all a lie. And that I couldn't process how somebody I just helped to set up business, I just set up in business, would try to defraud me barely 1 month after. But all she saw was an ATM machine. She never saw my humanity, never saw my feelings, had no feelings towards me. All she saw was a guy who had money. And the faster the money came out, the more she thought I was exploitable. And what was shocking to me is how people started pleading religion and all those things. And she became the victim, and I became, she became the one who was the victim. The one that victimized now became the victim. Religion can mess up people, I'm just saying, be wise in life, okay? Now, let me tell you one of the challenges, about 7 challenges that you're going to have in order to function properly in emotional intelligence. The first one is that most of you, the psychological profile that you have is that you are not even self-aware. And let me explain what that means. As a very, very young boss, I was highly impatient. You see, I process things enormously fast. I don't do 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. I just do 2 raised to the power of 22 or something. And the way I process things is that I see things in pictures. I don't care how many words you jumble or how many elements you jumble and everything. I'm just able to organize all those elements. They're like color codes to me. I can just see that red goes with red, this goes with this, and within a minute or two, I've arranged all that thought and all those elements, and I've arranged them so far. So now here I was, where I started the company, and I was employing people. And the people were not processing the information the way I was seeing the information and the way I was processing the information. And so I would tell somebody to do something, and while they're wasting time, I'll just say, please get up, get up, get up. And I'll sit down in the chair, and just do the work myself. Until one day it occurred to me that you are paying these people, why are you doing the work for them? And then somebody called me aside, I think it was Shibomi who called me aside and said, Mr. Alder, that I hope you realize that you are functioning with a gift, and you are not functioning with rational capacity, And then I thought about it and I said, oh, it's true. It must be a gift. Maybe that's why I can process things so fast. Now, why? I was not aware of even my own gifts. And because I was not aware of my own gifts, there was a way I was treating the staff, and I was impatient with the staff. You got to be self-aware of your own capacity. If you are listening to this kind of lecture, you must have a certain type of capacity. And people with that kind of capacity tend to be impatient with others, thereby derogating from their ability to function with emotional intelligence. So you must be self-aware. The second problem that you have and is the environment in which you function in. You have to repudiate the Nigerian environment. The Nigerian environment is not a kind environment. Nigerians often think that they are kind, but they are not kind. It's not a kind environment. It's an oppressive environment, a power-defined environment in which everybody is trying to show that they are powerful. Even the gate man will show you. You know, I had a friend who is a fellow of the Royal Society of Neurologists or whatever in England, brilliant doctor in England and everything. And he was transferring to another country. And he needed to get some papers, just some certifications, you know, from Abuja. So he flew from England to Nigeria. And this thing, I mean, shouldn't take more than a day or two. 2 weeks, this guy was still in Abuja. And his life was being frustrated. I mean, he grew up in England, so he just couldn't understand. You know, we had to constantly encourage him, tell him to hang in there. So the money that he had bargained that he would spend for 2 days, he ended up spending 1 million naira over on accommodation and transportation just to get a certificate out. It is a power-defined society, which is why we use words like Oga. You know, Oga is a hierarchical system. It's not just about being the boss, it's about hierarchy, and an hierarchy that imagines subordination. Now, it's only in Nigeria that you are at the airport and a civil notice like, please don't do this, or please park your locker here or something, is accompanied by the word by order. This is a civil notice. So if you notice, we're very bad at hospitality. We don't know how to say please. We don't know how to run hotels. Our service language, our culture is very, very poor. It's because we're a power-defined society where everybody has to show that is somebody, and everybody has to know somebody, and you can't get anything done unless you know somebody. Now, if you imbibe that kind of culture, it's going to be hard for you to function properly in emotional intelligence. And when you don't function in emotional intelligence properly, all those things that you're supposed to do with the emotions, you're going to lose them. So you have to repudiate the environment in which you operate in. You have to repudiate the Nigerian culture of big manism. And a lot of people have died from big manism. I was shocked, for example, when the newspapers reported that our legislators were refusing any scan for coronavirus at the airport because they are big men. As if coronavirus recognizes Nigerian big men. You know, you think that, you know, there's a social visa that coronavirus recognizes at the airport and says, hey, Oga, you know, anything, but it's that bad. That is the society in which we operate. If you doubt me, go to the embassy and meet the ordinary gatesman at the embassy and see what he does to his own fellow Nigerian. And you know, I was reading Solomon the other time, and he said that one of the most amazing things in life and one of the most atrocious things in life is when a poor man oppresses a poor man, you know. So, I mean, it's amazing, you know, and everybody is Oga, you know. And then, you know, I've seen staff employed at Alder Consulting at the junior level, and I've seen a guy who has nothing and is dependent and reliant on this lady's salary and everything, and yet he will beat her, you know. And anyway, I don't take very kindly to that. Either I get the police on you, and God help you if I wake up on the right side, you know, of the bed, then that will be police, you know. Sometimes you feel like contacting some other people who can, you know, do extracurricular activity on such men, you know, who beat such women. But I'm not saying anything, you know, I'm not saying anything, okay? So I'm just saying that you are in a power-defined society. And if you buy into that, you're going to buy into the spirit of oppression, and you're going to be unkind, and you're going to, you know, have you noticed that the people beg for what is theirs? You know, that's the kind of society you are, and you can't buy into that. The third thing, if you want to succeed emotionally, is to learn to empty yourself. You see, one of the things you need to pray to God for is for God to give you the ability not to see yourself. You see, when you are doing well, when you have a brand new car, if you're a young man, you know, and you have a sports car, and you have a babe beside you, and you are wearing, you are traveling and you are wearing Gucci and all those things. There's a tendency to just imagine that that's the way you were born, and that the day you were born in a Gucci dress or Gucci nappies or something. You learn to empty yourself. You learn to not to take yourself as anything. That way you preserve yourself, because you see, pride is a terrible thing. You never see it. You become so arrogant, you that you were very polite to people before. Now you see the girl selling eggs. You go and jam the girl selling eggs because you can pay for it, and you see all that all over society. And people who do that, they don't last, because pride always goes before a fall. So I will advise you, empty yourself. Just empty yourself, so that you can last in business, at the office, and so that, you see, there are fights in life that you don't need. Be strategic in the fights that you pick. There are fights in life that you don't need. Let you be accused. Let yourself be accused of every other thing. Be accused of being nice, be accused of even being called a mumu or whatever. Be accused of every other thing except pride. You don't want that associated with you, because when you are prideful, you create more enemies for yourself. And if you are gifted and prideful, you are looking for trouble, because in the day of your calamity, you won't have too many help. The fourth thing that you need to do is that you need to stop equating emotions with weakness, especially the men. Many years ago, I employed a very beautiful young lady in Alder Consulting. She came in as a receptionist. And after 1 month or two, in Alder, you come in as a receptionist, but we don't allow you to stay at the reception. We train you so that you become a consultant. So you can come in at whatever level. It's up to you how far you progress. And this girl, one particular day, I called her and I said, look, we're going to remove you from the reception. We're going to take you up to consultancy level to start your training as a management consultant. Very beautiful girl, very brilliant, very dedicated. But she had a blood problem, a blood typology problem. And she went home for the weekend. And she went to see her sister. So they bought roasted corn by the roadside. Now the sister tasted the roasted corn and said, there's something funny about this corn. So the sister threw it away. She ate it and took a second bite and said, well, I don't think there's something wrong with it and everything. We didn't know that she was eating fungi. And like joke, she had running tummy in the night. Before the next morning, this young lady was dead. And on Monday, I'm expecting her to start her training. And then her father called me. And I pray that if you're an employer of labor, that is a kind of call that you never get. I had a 60-something-year-old man cry on the phone, talking about the death of his daughter. It haunted me so much, especially because now I had to design our obituary, the program for our burial, and things like that. I just couldn't handle it. And since then, I prayed to God that no member of all staff of Alder Consulting would die again. That God has to give them eternal life one way or the other. But what I learned is that when anguish comes, there is no manliness about anguish. And so if you don't learn how to cry as a man, you are building up the kind of pressure that is unnecessary. And if you don't learn how to be, lose your emotional constipation as a woman, you'll come across as so hard that the things that you desire in a relationship, you're not going to get them, because there are some things that only come with softness in a relationship. There are some things that can only come with kindness and softness and all the things that we call emotional sentimentalism in relationship, there are some things that can only come that way. So emotions is not weakness. Even Jesus wept. And you can't tell me Jesus was not a man. If you can approach that cross and get nailed by those Romans, you must be a man. And he never cried, but he wept. Number 5, let me see. Learn to set boundaries between your office and your home. You see, you can't carry the same mindset from the office to the home. This is particularly a fault that many African men have, because our traditional system, sometimes people are even conflated about what kind of marriage that they are practicing, whether it's avant-garde, whether it's traditional, whether it's modern. Whatever you want to practice is up to you. Whether modern marriage, whether avant-garde marriage, whether traditional, whether religious, it's up to you. But please be consistent. Because it's the inconsistency that creates tension at home. So you can't go home, for example, and be addressing your wife as if you're addressing your junior staff, and be giving commands and everything. Even if you get away with it, your children will start running away from you. And then years later, you are going to desire their company, and you are going to desire the company of your grandchildren, and you won't understand why people are running away from you. Number 6, let go. Let go. The most difficult thing, as I meditated on this lecture, for people like you, is letting go. There's a fear of losing control. And, it's funny, as you grow older, then you are going to realize that the less control you have over life, and that you really, really have no control over life. First of all, you can't even control your partner, because the person has an independent will. Then, not to talk of all the indices of life, you can't control what's going on in Abuja. You can't control what's going on the streets of Lagos. You can't even control what's going on in London. But, we like to control. And then there are those who like to control relationships. They must be in control because they have a security problem. If you want to have a good relationship, you must be secure in yourself. And you must be able to trust the other person and just trust the person. I'm not talking about a bad person or an ill-informed person or a bad behavior person. That's not what I'm talking about, or somebody without character. That's not what I'm talking about. You already have a problem of choice anyway. So, and once a marriage goes bad with choice, chances that you are going to have a very, 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 very bad marriage down the line. Okay? I'm saying let go and recognize that you can't, it's not just that you are trying to control the totality of your life. You're also trying to control the lives of others. And you are going to break yourself because you don't have the strength for that kind of thing. The last thing that you have to contend with is the fact that at your level and based on your profile that you have, is that you are going to have to allocate some of the emotional intelligence you have to intelligence, rational intelligence. So, for example, for me, I hardly use emotions to cry, but I use it to process intellectual work and to come up with solutions for clients and things like that. So there's a poor allocation. Your diagrams and everything. So you have to make allocation for your family, for relationships. The older you grow, the more you realize that family is very, very important. And the worst thing that can happen to you is to become a billionaire, but there's nobody to share your billions with. I once knew somebody who was a very successful lawyer, one of the most successful lawyers in the history of Nigeria. I mean, you're talking a guy whose bills were in millions of dollars. And this man died, and not one child was interested in his law firm or anything, that they didn't want to have anything to do with him. That is not success. I don't define that as success. Lastly, let me tell you a little story about the Nigerian environment, and then we can take Q&A. As a very young man, I was traveling in a Danfo bus around Apapa. I was going home. My father's house, was in Apapa. And I saw two Nigerians fighting inside the bus. If you've ever witnessed two Nigerians fighting, you know that there's a pattern that the fight follows. The first thing that they start saying is that, do you know who I am? And they never see the irony of thinking that they're anything in a Danfo bus or in a Modway bus. How can you be somebody inside the Modway bus or in a Danfo bus? And the right post is usually, who are you? Who are you? Tell me who you are. And this other guy said, let me tell you who I am. My brother is a doctor at Tinkan Island. And the irony of it all was not lost, was totally lost on him. And as I sat down there and I said, this is what I was saying about the Nigerian society. It is a power equation society such that Nigerians are even ready to borrow other people's achievements just to beef up and so that they can oppress their fellow man. Well, I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this has been useful to you. I think the question and answer will be more useful to you. And I want to thank you for listening. I hope it has been a good lecture. How many minutes have we spent? Not bad.
We still have about 30 more minutes, sir. So maybe we should go to question and answer if that works for you, please.
Please do.
Okay, very well. So please, if you have any questions, could you kindly just send your questions to the chat room? I will read the questions out. Please, if you have any questions, this is a good time to please drop your questions. Thank you so much for well, I had to sit down to jot and all of that. I just had to take notes. And I'm sure that a lot of people, I already saw feedback from a lot of people saying, wow. And some people also requested to know if this is recorded and the recording will be shared. Yes, it is recorded. We would send you an email or we will just add you to the email list. Yes, we'll add you to the email list. So please, if you have questions, this is a fantastic time. Okay, somebody says, Ogochukwu says, please give some tips on managing people who lack integrity. The questions are dropping so fast. I need to get Ogochukwu's. The first question, the first part of the question that I saw was, please give tips on how to manage people who lack integrity.
You have to, if you're in business with them, you have to be very, very careful. Make sure that everything that you have with them is well documented. Now, that's not going to save you, but at least it protects you up to a certain point. Best not to do business with people without integrity. That's just the truth. But sometimes the circumstances of life forces you to be in bed with such people. So if that is the case, use a very, very long spoon. Because it has nothing to do with what you are dealing with. It's a character issue. It's not, even when they are making 1 billion and you're only making 1,000 in the deal, they still lack integrity. They're still going to try and cheat you out of it. So if you're doing business with them, try and collect as much of your money up front. And there's something that is called fast pay, slow pay, no pay. Fast pay, slow pay, no pay. When you start the contract, they give you big amount of money to start, and maybe 40% of the mobilization. They mobilize you with 40%. And then the next one is supposed to be paid in a month's time. And then 1 month comes, you don't get the money. 2 months come. Finally, the money comes maybe 6 months down the line. And then you go and rush and finish the job and you're expecting the final payment of your money and nothing is going to come forth. There are just some people like that. They just like character.
Thank you so much, sir. Please forward your questions. This is a fantastic time to please send in your questions. Please send in your questions. So, Ogochukwu, you have that already. And Wale says, how do you manage bosses that thrive on the Nigerian hierarchy nature of leadership? It looks like you stand the chance of missing out on promotions if you don't do the eye service or I loyal, sir attitude, all those I loyal kind of thing, and practically worship them.
The first thing is that you got to be very, very, very good at what you do. You got to be excellent at what you do so that you are a required quantity. And then number two, let them know you're a professional. That is very important. You see, when the chips fall, Nobody's going to give jobs to Orisa, and all those guys who are psychophants or any of those things. They're going to call the professionals. So you see, you weaken yourself when you are not good at what you do and when you are not so proficient at what you do. So you weaken your bargaining position, and understand that part of the business of succeeding as an executive is sometimes some people are lucky. Like in all that consulting, we don't have time for all that nonsense because it's a meritocracy. But there are some organizations. I remember one bank that by 6 o'clock, the waiting room of the CEO will be full of people, and each person is trying to give him gist about what the other person said and all this. And of course, that bank didn't last. So understand that there's a political dimension to this thing. Don't cross people that you don't need to cross. Just do your job and start looking for a way out of such an organization.
Thank you so much, sir. Another question is, how can we effectively decipher envy?
You can tell now, it's just that you overwrite the data. Envy is very simple. Let me give you a typical example of envy. I go to Palms with my sister-in-law. My father-in-law had six wonderful girls. All he had was girls, because he was so focused on obtaining dowry, and so I take and all my sisters-in-law are very close to me. They come to our house and things like that. So there's a way they relate to me. So one of them follows me to the shopping center, and a lady looks at her and felt that she was feeling too cool beside me. It's like, you're trying to prove that you know Mr. Leke Alder. And this lady looks at my sister-in-law and eyes her from top to bottom. So I turned to her thinking that maybe they had an altercation over a boyfriend or something. I said, do you know that lady? She said she doesn't know her. And I said, so why is she eyeing you, up and down? That is envy. It's totally irrational, and you recognize it. It's just that you overwrite. That's the problem. You overwrite it. Now, when you see the envious, it doesn't mean that you should go and meet them and say, oh, why are you envious of me? No. You just take what lawyers call judicial notice of it and begin to relate with such a person with wisdom. So you don't go to such a person and just say, I'm planning to buy a new car or I'm planning to buy a new wig. You're looking for trouble, because the person can't handle the information. You have to know what information people can handle, and you disseminate information according to the capacity of people to handle the information. Some of you are so naive, and that naivety is stupidity sometimes, because you see, it's coming back to haunt you. So you recognize it. It's just that we paper over it. And I told you I was a very foolish young man who didn't recognize envy all throughout university. And some of the people that dealt with me later in life, it was because of university. Can you imagine that somebody said that when we were in university, that the girls liked me in university and they didn't, they felt that they were better or more handsome and everything. And who thinks like that? We were 16, 17. And the person waited until we were in our 40s to do what the person wanted to do. And the person dealt with me over what happened when we were on campus. And he had a girlfriend. So how do you rationalize that? You can't rationalize such things. Now, of course, I know better now, But in those university, I'll go there and say, oh, I've just bought Jojo Brutini shoes and everything. I was talking to the wrong person. Very foolish young man I was. Now, I would never do that because the person can handle such information. And up till now, there are people that I wouldn't allow come too close to me because they can't handle being too close to me. So be wise. That's what I'm telling you. Be wise in life. There are battles you don't need to fight. Don't get into fights that you don't need to fight. Okay?
Thank you so much, sir. Another question. Somebody says, your feedback on impatience resonates with me that, I get impatient when my team members are not performing pretty well. That how did you handle that?
You have to learn patience as a boss. There's a learning curve. Recognize that you have certain capacities that your staff don't have, and that there's a learning curve. And if you want to grow the company, then you got to allow for imperfections. You got to allow for failures. Else you're just going to keep snapping, and your emotions are going to get messed up, and then you're going to become temperamental. And when you become temperamental, you become open. I'm a student of Solomonics, so, and it says that once you are angry like that, that you become, you just become open to all sorts of attack. I mean, your health will go bad, malaria will attack you, everything will attack you just because you're angry. So you calm down, you manage, you recognize that people have to learn, that there's a learning curve. And it's better to allow them to learn and develop the company than for you to do all the work, because then the company will never grow.
Mm. Thank you, sir. Another question is about how do you replenish your emotional energy?
The most important thing for me is my home. I'm married to a fantastic woman. I admire her. She's preternaturally peaceful, and she makes the home so peaceful for me. I'm lucky to have married her because for her, I'm the sole mission of her life. And she does everything she can to protect me, everything she can to make sure that my life is easy. And she manages the home so efficiently so that I can come, because see, my main job is thinking, and she recognizes that. So she will do everything to protect me and give me the opportunity to think, and, there's no disharmony in our home. You step into our home, there's so much love and there's so much affection. So she makes life so easy for me. The other way that I manage stress and things like that is by going to the movies and things like that. I just go with friends and people that I trust, because I have to be emotionally, I have to trust you, and that's what I do, and then when I travel, I get to relax and, and do all that. But the primary medium for me is the ministry of my wife.
Thank you, sir. That just looks like a sub as we are single. The next question. Next question is, what's your perspective about being authentic and vulnerable as a leader? How do you go about it with discretion?
First of all, you have to learn that the information is not for everybody. And you have to be, first, you see, when you don't think anything of yourself, and when you realize that there's a way that God can use the material of your life, that you're a data that is read. I did an interview with Dele Momodu, Ovation, about some days ago, and the response has been amazing. I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, people are reproducing transcripts for me. My classmates are sending it to their children. People are writing notes and telling me they've learned a lot just because I just told the truth. I believe in honesty. I believe in sincerity. I believe that relationships should not be complicated. But I also know that it's not everybody that you should share the details of your life with, because not everybody has integrity and not everybody has character. So judge the character of the person that you want to share information with. And there are people who can't handle the glory in your life. Recognize that as a factor. You can't be a high impact, high achieving executive and expect that everybody will love you as you are making progress, and as you bought a car, you bought a house, or you are marrying, or you are dating this wonderful guy, and all those things, you are going to have problems. So learn that there are layers of information, and there is a hierarchy of information and hierarchy of access, and determine who has access to those different hierarchies of information that you have. So that's the way to go about it.
Thank you, sir. Another question, how does one address the influence of family/societal demands given its prevalence in Nigerian culture?
Well, it depends on, I assume they are talking about it in terms of, first, there are two dimensions to it. There's the marital dimension, and then there's the societal dimension. See, the first thing that you need to notice that there's a concept of commonwealth in traditional African system. Let's assume that your uncle has 18 children and you are the only successful person. Everybody feels that what you have is their commonwealth. And you got to learn to be able to say, no, Because if you continue to distribute money at the rate at which those guys want you to distribute money, you'll be poorer than them. And you have to understand that people naturally transfer their burden onto others. Let me give you an example. If I call you now and I say that my children's school fees is due and it's 500,000, I've emotionally transferred the burden to you. Consciously, unconsciously, you start thinking of how do you meet that burden, or how do you help this person, or what can you do, or what can you not do. The person has transferred burden to you. You have to allow people to know that, I keep on saying it, your name is not Jesus Christ. Everybody must be responsible. If you bring children into the world, you must be responsible for those children. You know, someone approached me the other time, and it was my father's birthday, and we were having this get together in my father's house. And the person had children that had not even gotten, they were in secondary school. And the gentleman got up in my father's sitting room, a young, relatively young man, just about 4 or 5 years older than me, and said he has retired. And I looked at him and I said, so how can you retire? I mean, how do you retire? You know, you have children. But what he meant was, I have retired from taking responsibility for my children. Leke, it is now your responsibility to school my children and pay for their school fees and do everything. A few years later, he walks up to me and says the daughter has gained admission to University of Ibadan and that I should come and pay the school fees. I listened to him. You don't argue with such people, but it's my money. And I refuse to, I just refuse to honor such things, because if I do, I'm encouraging irresponsibility. Now, that's not saying you shouldn't help people. There are people that genuinely need help, but there are people that are just irresponsible. They're into sex, they are not into marriage. They're into sex, they are not into fatherhood, and all those things. You don't encourage such things. You must force people to take responsibility for their lives, okay? Now, if you're the firstborn in an African family, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. If you're an only child, there's also a lot of pressure that comes with it. Learn how to say no, and learn how to be firm, and let people know you for what you stand for. They will call you Oyinbo, they will call you all sorts of things, but you will last. Another thing, when you marry, don't expose your wife to all those things so that they're degrading your wife and she's being treated with, like an object of ignominy and things like that. And all they do, you are degrading yourself by subjecting your wife to all those things. And, people say, oh, if you don't participate in those things, and when you're having function, nobody will come to your function. It's because you have not succeeded. If you succeed, don't worry. Everybody will show up at your party, so don't worry about such things. Stand by the principles that you know, respect your wife, respect your family, but at the same time, give honor to your parents, but be firm and let them know what you stand for and what you will do and what you will not do.
Thank you so much, sir. Like I promised, this will just go on for the next 10 minutes. I know you need to rest. So just like I promised, that would happen, and we'll keep to our words. So questions are still dropping in, but they're so fast and I'm trying to keep up with them. But the last I saw was was the question on how do you handle people who act negatively, or who have not too good, who don't display really good behaviors at work, like badly behaved adults, maybe something like that.
You treat them with ignominy, and some of these people are accusers. There's nothing you can ever do right. If you drink with a blue cup, they complain. While you are changing the cup, they ask you, why are you drinking water? If you change it to Fanta, they say, why are you drinking Fanta? So you know you are dealing with an accuser. And there's nothing you can do that can satisfy such a person. So you give as much a wide berth with the person, but you protect your inside. It's important that you guard your heart, and don't allow people to trample over your heart and treat you badly and squeeze your heart and just treat you, like non-entity and everything. So again, it still boils down to professionalism. And respect for your work, at work. And there will always be the politicians at work. There's nothing you can do about that, but such people, keep a wide berth from them. Trying to satisfy them, you can never, ever satisfy them. You have to study the pattern of how God deals with your life. Everybody has a pattern in life. And if you don't study that pattern and try to be like everybody else, you're going to suffer for it. I'm not saying be arrogant or be insouciant. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying one of the most critical things that you need in life, consultants like me, we talk about strategy, we talk about objectives, we talk about goals and everything, but we never talk about wisdom. And you need wisdom. In order to function properly in wisdom, you also need understanding. So you need understanding. If there's nothing you pray to God for wisdom to navigate this life. So, know people who are your friends. Don't try and be friendly with everybody. Be friends with, be friendly with people, but know that not everybody is your friend. I mean, be wise and don't expose your innards and yourself to people who are going to trample you over and deal with you and try and destroy you. And you can tell because you are going to start hearing things in their voice. There'll be inflections, there'll be hints dropped here and there. You hear nasty things like you just look. A few years ago, I was very fond of as a young man, I was very fond of BMW cars. And so I had quite a number of cars. And somebody went to one of my friends and asked that these cars that I have, there is it that I buy one car, then I trade it in and bring another car to church. Then the next Sunday, I trade that one in and bring another one to church. That already tells me to run away from such a person, because why are you doing audits on my cars, and everything? I already knew that that's not good heart now. Even if I'm trading my cars in, how is that any of your business? So I learned to run away from such people because nothing good can ever come out of that. They are wondering about how you are making it, where your money is coming from. They are wondering whether you are fronting for somebody or whether you're into drugs or into illegal things and all those things. And once people start having bad heart towards you, you should run away from such people.
Wow. Thank you, sir. So, to everyone listening, please, we will take just about 5 more questions. And just like I said, that I promised that we're not going to keep him for too long. There's a question, I saw a question on how do you allocate emotional intelligence to intelligence?
There's nothing you can do. What you should be worried about is allocating part of that emotional intelligence to your family and to your friendships and to your relationships. That's your real work as a high impact person. Um, when I met my wife, she was just so loving that she was too loving, you know. so so I called my pastor, and I said, she loves me too much. I don't know how to handle this. He said, you better pray. You better thank God that your wife loves you too much. He said, well, go and pray to God to give you the capacity to receive the love, So that's exactly what I did, because I just felt, how can you love someone so much? But that's what people are praying for. And that's what I prayed for, actually, And then I got it and I didn't know what to do with it, okay? So your problem is not allocating emotional intelligence to rational work. The problem is how to make allocation to the things that matter in life, the real things that matter in life, and those are relationships.
Thank you, sir. 3 more questions to go. Please, if you have any question, this is a fantastic time to please drop the question in the chat box. Thank you so much. I can see people saying, oh, this has been fantastic. This has been wow. I hope we have the recording. Like I mentioned earlier, yes, we recorded this on Monday. On Monday, everyone's email address will be added to the recording on YouTube, but it would be a private section. So it's not public. It would just be for everyone who attended on Monday, please. So please, this will be done before close of business on Monday. And I'm emphasizing that Monday because I know that from this night, you will be sending messages to say, oh, can I have the video? Yes, you will have it on Monday. So please wait till Monday. Thank you. 3 more questions, please. 3 more questions. Please just forward your questions to the chat box. Mr. Leke Alder is still available. He will be available for the next 6 minutes. Yeah, so another question says, how can one bring effectively bring their A game in an organization, most especially as a young professional?
It's very simple. Determine from the very get-go that you are going to succeed on merit. It's so important. See, in every system, there will always be those who think that that's the way to get along in life is not to be professional and everything. But I'm saying that this kind of COVID era period provides you a wonderful opportunity to show your usefulness and your quality. Let me explain what I'm saying. If you're a corporation now, you want to give out a contract, will you give out contract to a general contractor who really you are doing a favor and doesn't really know what he's doing, or will you give it to a company that knows what it's doing and can use your money effectively and you are not afraid of losing your money? So just be professional. When we started all that consulting, we decided we will be professional. Even when I knew board members, I remember we were bidding for a job, I think with First Bank. And even though I knew the most influential members of the board, I refused to inform them that we were even bidding for the job. We won the job on merit. So nobody could say, oh, let's take it from them, or is representing this block or representing that person or any of those things. They knew we were professional. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy route to take. I'm saying it's a more preferable route to take because you have a name and that name, will last and last and last. And anyway, when you don't go that way, you weaken the organization you work in. You see, because the organization will not be used to competing, will not be used to excellence, will not be used to quality. And so the organization becomes weakened over time. And sooner or later, people are going to start getting jobs by bribery and all those kinds of things. And then troubles come down the line and all those kinds of things. And you don't need all those things. Okay? Recognize that allows the politicians that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be politically savvy. Do your networking, know people. If you need to go to a Ikoyi club, go to a Ikoyi club. If you need to go boat club, go to boat club. If you need to go to certain parties, go to those parties. Meet people and all those things. But you don't need to genuflect before a cow and call the cow your brother or something, there's no need for some of these things.
Thank you, sir. We have two more questions. Just one. The next one says, can you please speak to the balance between establishing a reputation and being humble?
There's no contradiction between the two. There's no contradiction between being humble and establishing a good reputation. They go hand in hand. Whether you are trying to establish a good reputation or not, just be humble in life, because you see, everything that you have, everything that you are ever going to be, your very life itself is a gift from God. This COVID era has shown you the fragility of life, how people can just die and drop like mice. There's nothing that you have. I mean, there's nothing that you have not received. So what is the pride for? And to what end? Because pride is about oppressing your fellow man and trying to show that you're a big man and all that. So to what end? So there's no contradiction. There's nothing about it. I'm just saying, live a humble life. Acknowledge the contributions of others. Acknowledge the seniority of others. Acknowledge the superiority of others. When people do good work, recognize those good works and recognize good in others. Be kind to people. Be gentle to people. Look, as you grow older, it's an incredibly small world. It's an incredibly small world. You'll be shocked how small the world is, because the higher you go, the smaller the world becomes. And so you don't need elbows to climb to the top. You don't need to stamp people. You don't need to be rough and do all those unnecessary things, because there's a price you pay for it. You either pay the price at the corporate level, or you pay the price in social circles, or you pay the price in marriage, or you pay the price in relationship, any of those things. And there are prices that are not worth paying. Be humble.
Wow. that just hit somewhere. Thank you, sir. Okay, I think the person is trying to then explain, saying it's more Ayomide, I'm not sure what that is. Just let me know. One final question, but while we're waiting for the final question from whoever we would like to ask, There's a particular book that I laid my hands on this year by Mr. Leke Alder. It is called Bizkit, which is Bizkit. It is one of the best books that I've laid my hands on for professionals. If you do not have it yet, please visit his website, www.lekealder.com. Once you place your order, it will be delivered to your doorstep. I think over 40 or 50 members of my tribe have bought it. I recommended it. In fact, we had a session on it at Emotion City where we were looking through, they were asking questions and all of that. So if you do not have Bizkit, it is one of the most powerful book that you can ever lay your hands on. And then if you have children like in the 20s, it's a fantastic book. Anyone you think you want to encourage to be an entrepreneur, please get a copy of Bizkit on www.lekealder.com. It is less than the cost of your phone or all our wigs and all of those things, trust me. And I personally will say that it is money back guarantee. So if you have any issue, I will refund you, don't worry. Just pick it up. If you have any issue, I will do the refund from my pocket. So final one, final question. Remember Bizkit, it's on www.lekealder.com. Just get a copy. The guarantee is on me. If you think that what I just said is not worth it, I will personally do the refund from my pocket. One final question, and just like I said, we will be appreciating Mr. Leke Alder and be encouraging him to go have a fantastic night. One more question. Any other person asking a question, please. If you have a question, it's a fantastic time to please send in your question just before we appreciate him and we permit him to have a restful night. Any other question? 60 seconds more. Any other question? If you have a question, please send in that particular question now. If you have a question, this is a good time. I don't want the question to drop after I have said the grace. I don't want it to drop after I have said the grace. Ayomide, I don't know what you are trying to say. That's a challenge. I've seen like 6 different things there. I'm not sure I still can comprehend it. And yes, it's sounding deep, but I think if it's simple, I can understand it. It's almost late, so that depth is powerful. I just need it to be simple so I can read it out. I'm seeing them in bits, so I'm not sure I know the beginning and the end. But probably what I can do for you is I see that you are eager to ask. Yes, so let me unmute you, and then if we hear it, maybe it is going to be easier. So Ayomide, can you hear me? Ayomide? Hello? Ayomide, can you hear me?
It's muted.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. So over to you, your question.
Thank you so much, Rinko, and thank you, sir. So I asked a question about humility and the balance between that and building a reputation. So what I mean is, if you tend to be timid, maybe imposter syndrome, like those kinds of things, where do you draw the line between your conscious attempt to stay humble, but then potentially jeopardizing the opportunity to establish like a strong reputation, strong personality, that sort of thing. So almost like, as opposed to being prideful, attempting to be humble, but then potentially being too humble, if that makes sense.
Okay. There's a difference in humility and humility. Humility is so pretentious. It denies facts, it denies talents, it denies gifts. Humility doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge your gifts or your capacities or your talents. Humility recognizes that, but humility doesn't vaunt over certain things, because there's something that David wrote in one of his blogs. And he wrote and he said that when a man is in honor, but he lacks understanding, it's like the beasts that perish. In other words, you have the brain of an animal if you are exalted and you lack understanding of the fact that it is grace that you are spending. It's the currency of grace that you are spending. I'm saying just be yourself. Don't try and be anything. Don't try and be assertive. Don't try and just be yourself. There's an attractive quality to sincerity and honesty and authenticity and integrity. There's just something